Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I'm going to add our co host, Rashid. So, this is Rashid and Rashid. Before I say hello to my good friend, my buddy, and my good brother, I just want to talk to you all for a minute. We're experiencing a little, as always, we're experiencing a little technical difficulties. But thank you again for joining us on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, anywhere on YouTube. Because we give it to you, we give you the facts raw, uncut, undiluted, and straight butt naked. Now, I would like to take the time out to wish my wife a happy birthday. May God continue to bless and keep you, strengthen you, keep our union strong and everything like that. Hey, be blessed, and I hope you enjoy your birthday and you get everything you want on your birthday. Happy birthday, Nicole. Now, Rashid, before we go into any news, how's it going with you today? Are they freezing you? I see they're up to their tricks today. I guess they're gonna freeze Rashid. Ah, they're old tricks today. Let me see. Rashid, can you hear me? So,
Yes,
how's your day? What's up with you? Before we go into news, what's on your mind?
I listened to a podcast from the guy that runs the Duran this morning.
Mhm.
No buffering, straight. Nothing, not one scintilla of freezing. But
Yeah,
that's all we get over here: is freezing and buffering.
and that's what I constantly say, and I made mention of that yesterday on the broadcast. That when the guy was he brought up the religion and the color factor and all that stuff, um, and I brought up because I actually enjoyed the Rand program, and I was like, why didn't he take issue with what they were saying? If they were telling the truth, why didn't he take issue with what they were saying? Why did he just specifically take issue with what we were saying, even though we were actually pulling up articles and videos proving what we were saying was the truth? So it had to be something underlying that ticked him off, something more than the truth that ticked him off. It had to go deeper than the program. It had to go deeper than just telling the truth. It had to be some underlying issues that he had to deal with. But let's go into the news because I don't want to stay on the program 2.5 hours like we did yesterday. The fact that I do have a few things to do, like I know you do, and besides that, my wife probably would kill me today because it's her birthday. And so I just wanted we're gonna do a little spinning the block, and we're gonna go back to something that we talked about yesterday about America's domestic policies and her international policies, and how the the leadership does not recognize the blowback effect of her arrogant, racist, exceptional policies, and how she believes that she can get away with killing people uh, through her police force. And I'm not saying all the police do that. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying what is like pervasive in urban society. They do harass, they do beat up, they do uh, illegally detain and lock up people, and a lot of false charges are thrown on people in the urban community, even though it is unimaginable to the rest of America. But they do that, and they go around the world doing the same thing, and they don't expect blowback. And this shows you their mentality, the exceptional mentality, meaning that they know that when God created the heavens and the earth, He put laws at the base of its creation, and at the base of its creation was what goes around comes around. A lot of times, what you put out, you get back, and sometimes even more. And one of the basic tenets of science is any reaction will incur an equal or greater reaction, right? But America believes that exceptional mantra, that exceptional madness and nonsense that I can kill, I can rob, I can rape, I can maim, I can occupy, I can ignore laws, and there's no repercussions for me because I'm the world's global superpower. And they don't realize that these policies that they've instituted in urban America, which is now seeping out of urban America into what they quote unquote call mainstream America, because now you see white, brown, red, and yellow protesting with the unfair, unjust policies and tactics of the law enforcement. And then you see the international policies that America continues to
I
carry
got to
out.
take this call.
Okay,
I got to
okay.
take. I got to
I'm
take
gonna
this
mute
call.
you. I'm gonna mute you. I'm gonna mute you. So you continue to see America lashing out across the world, and now we look at mass shootings in America, and there's multiple mass shootings now. These can be psyop operations. They can be, because America loves to use psyop operations to scare people, to instill fear, to misdirect people, especially when something else of a greater magnitude is about to take place. So we cannot just dismiss all of that. Some people are talking about some of these things are psyop operations, and they may be. But also, well, regardless of whether they are psyop operations or not, this is blowback. You cannot put out war, destabilization, color revolutions, assassinations, flooding neighborhoods with drugs, flooding neighborhoods with guns, whether it's in the urban America, whether it's Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Libya. Everywhere you go, she leaves a trail of destruction and death everywhere she goes. You cannot constantly do that and not expect for some of this stuff to hit home. Search while I'm talking to you. I think my battery on the computer is going dead. Hey son, I'm going to need. Oh, my battery is going dead while I'm doing this. So, it is telling me my battery is low. Give me 1 second, everyone. I'm gonna put up a little clip, and we'll come back to this. And this clip will have everything to do with what America is doing. Okay, just let me put this clip up, and I recharged the batteries on 2 of the computers, and evidently my son was streaming live and didn't charge them like he was supposed to. But check this out. I'll be right back after this.
So what do you see as the catalyst for popping this bubble?
Well, again, I think it's going to happen in the dollar. And the reason I think so is I think that the Fed will keep blowing air into the bubble until the dollar cracks. Because the way the Fed keeps everything propped up, the real estate market, the stock market, the bond market, the whole economy, the reason the U.S. government can keep spending money is because the Federal Reserve keeps printing it. But the key is, at some point, that money won't have any value. And that's what ends it. Because in order to prop up everything else, the Fed is sacrificing the dollar. Now, right now, they keep printing money, and the dollar's value hasn't collapsed. So they can keep printing more. And they're going to keep printing more and keep running deficits until the dollar collapses. Because until the dollar collapses, there's no reason to stop. I mean, why end a good thing? Why rain on your own party, right? So they're going to wait for a crisis. Only this is going to be much worse than the financial crisis of '08, because this is going to be a U.S. dollar crisis, which means it's also a sovereign debt crisis, U.S. Treasury bonds, because Treasury bonds are just IOU dollars into the future. And the big difference is when the crisis is the dollar, the U.S. government can't do anything to bail anybody out, because all they can do in a crisis is print more dollars. But if the dollar is the crisis, then printing more just throws gasoline on the fire. So this next crisis that's coming, no bailouts, no stimulus. Everybody is going to have to pay the piper when we have a dollar crisis. And believe me, the bill is going to be huge.
You see them raising interest rates?
Eventually, yes, when they have no choice. But they're not going to raise interest rates until they have to, because the minute they raise interest rates, everything collapses. And when they raise interest rates, that's when the U.S. government has to confess that it's broke and has to start cutting spending. Hey, we can't do any of these programs. In fact, we have to cut back on the programs we already have because we don't have any money. And we can't get it from the Fed anymore because the Fed is no longer in the business of printing money. The Fed is in the business of shrinking the money supply. It's trying to fight inflation. So it's destroying the money it already created. It's raising interest rates. So I think in that environment, not only can't the government borrow new money, it can't even repay the debts that it already owes. It can't even make the interest payments. Because remember, the bonds are all short term. So the T-bills, when they mature, they got to roll them over. Well, they won't have the money. So the government's going to default. That's what's going to happen. Just like subprime borrowers, when they couldn't make the payments, they defaulted. The U.S. government is a subprime borrower too. Without the Fed, all its checks bounce. And if it doesn't have the Fed, then it defaults. And so it's one or the other. It's either hyperinflation or default. So you decide.
Pick your poison. So for an average investor, they should be looking at what now?
Well, alternatives to the U.S. investments, alternatives to the U.S. dollar. Look at some of the foreign markets, both developed and emerging, which I think the emerging markets are, going to be a little rockier, bumpier, but give you more long-term gain as the whole world, moves past the U.S. dollar and the U.S. dollar is no longer the reserve currency. But you need to have very unconventional portfolios because this is a very unconventional outcome that the establishment is not prepared for. They're going to be blindsided by it, like '08, like 2000, only the Fed's not going to be there to bail them out. That was what happened. If you were completely wrong, if you were completely oblivious to the problems that caused the 2008 financial crisis, it was okay because the Fed bailed you out and you ended up making money anyway. But it's not going to work this time. So you got to bail yourself out prematurely. And that's what I'm doing, right? If you're interested in, having me help you implement the strategies, then, go to Europe Pacific Capital's website or my mutual fund website, asset management company. This is my company here in Puerto Rico, Europe Pacific Asset Management, and epacfunds.com is the website for my asset management company. And you can speak to one of my representatives about the strategies and how we can work them into your portfolio. I have 5 proprietary mutual funds that could actually be bought anywhere, or you can have them in specialized wrap accounts that we manage at my company. Mm-hmm. And I have separately managed accounts of individual stocks and bonds that we manage, all overseas, international investments.
Right. So what happens to the United States and its currency of the dollar?
Well, the dollar is going to get marked down. I mean, look what happened to the dollar in the 1970s. The dollar lost 70% of its value, 80%. I mean, prices went way up. That's why gold went from $35 an ounce to $800. That's why oil went from $3 a barrel to $30 a barrel. I mean, the price of everything went up in the 1970s. And in fact, because money lost so much value, that's why so many women started to work. If you go back to the 1960s and you look at the typical American family, the housewife didn't have a job. I don't care what job the husband had, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, right? Fireman, policeman, teacher. His wife didn't have a job. That one paycheck was enough, had enough buying power to support the entire family, right? But by the end of the 1970s, early 1980s, that paycheck had been so diminished by inflation that all of a sudden the guy couldn't support his family anymore. His wife had to go get a job. That really was the beginning. People want to say, oh, it was women's liberation. No, it wasn't. Women were liberated when they didn't have to work. That's liberation. When you're forced to work, that's when you lose your liberty. You don't have a choice. You got to leave your kids at home and you got to go out and work because your husband can't support you anymore. And that was a big change, And so I think we're going to see another substantive change this time where we wipe out retirement. I said earlier, no one's going to be retired anymore in America. Everybody's going to be working because no one has any savings that are going to have any purchasing power.
Yeah, and what's your upbeat prediction?
Well, my upbeat prediction is that maybe this crisis will be a catalyst, and this is maybe wishful thinking, but maybe a catalyst to cause America to understand finally the root cause of its problems.
Go down. Rashid has been knocked out of the booth twice since the show, since we went to the video, and he's back in the booth again. So this will be his third time in the booth. So you see what was going on. As Rashid said before, he watched our good compatriots, our good associates over at the Duran, and they didn't get knocked off one time. But this is what we constantly go through. But what I'm trying to show you is, do you not see the blowback effect of people turning their back to the U.S. dollar? Do you not see the violence coming home? It's a case of chickens coming home in the roost. If you put out violence and you put out occupation and you put out negative energy, and this is what they do to like the guy that came into the chat yesterday. He didn't like a mirror to be held up to America or her actions. But do you know, when you have a family member, right? And he should understand this, when you have a family member, friend, or a loved one that you care about, and you see them going astray, right? Shouldn't he tell his loved one or family member or friend about the actions that is leading to their detriment or their downfall? Hmm? You would not be someone who could be seen as honorable, ethical, or one with high ethical standards, or morally on a I would say acceptable standing, to allow people whom you love or people who may be affected by someone in your family or your friend doing what they're doing. If you did not checkmate or try to inform them, listen, I see your son over here, and your son is over here killing and robbing and taking the money and after he pillages the people, after he's sticking them up, he's over here smoking his crack. The other day, he raped my cousin. Hey, look, I know you and I grew up together. But if you don't do something about this, I'm going to do something about this, right? That is any person with a functioning brain. But a lot of the times, the criminal doesn't like the light shined on them. And people who have perpetrated certain things don't like the light shine on their friends or their family members, because they feel that sooner or later the spotlight will be shined on them. And that's the case of what took place. But we have to tell this stuff. We have to show the viewers and the viewership the reason why America is suffering what she's suffering. See, we see her suffering. We see her starting wars with everybody. We see her 10,000, 15,000 miles away, 6,000 miles, 2,000 miles away in other people's lands, threatening war and always talking about the belligerency of those nations when she's on their borders. But most people don't understand why America is bankrupt. Most people don't understand why her educational system is collapsing. They don't understand why the healthcare system is in disrepair. They don't understand why there's an influx of drugs and violence and guns all across America, specifically and especially in urban America. And when you tell the people that, and they become some inconvenient truths, and you have been in this la la Walt Disney world, sometimes you can't stomach that. Like, I posed a question to someone, we were talking, and I'll bring Rashid in. I'm trying to see if he'll move in the background. If he doesn't move in the background, I can't. That means he's frozen, and he'll just be frozen. Oh, I see him moving. Okay, I'll bring him in. Okay, I see you. I'll bring you in. But as I was saying to you, I was talking to someone, and we were talking about the violence in urban America, and we were talking about the influx of drugs and guns, and my question to them was that, because they were talking, it's getting so bad, and these people need to be doing this. And I said, these people and the situation is a symptom. This stuff is a symptom of a greater disease. And they didn't understand what I was saying, because a lot of times we like to beat around the bush as people here. That's what America does. They like to do diplomacy instead of talking about the reality of how to solve the situation. They do the fake diplomacy. And I posed these questions about urban America because we were talking about the unemployment situation, the single parent homes, and all of this stuff. And I brought to light this. I asked questions like this: Hey, why is there an influx of drugs in urban America? Why is there an influx of guns in urban America? Why is there an influx of violence in urban America? And they beat around the bush and everything. So me being straight cut and going to the point, I asked them, I said to them, does anybody in urban America control any satellites? I asked the question, and they didn't understand why I asked the question. What does that have to do with anything? I said, does anybody in urban America control the borders? Is anybody in urban America, does any person in urban America own gun manufacturing plants? Well, we know that the FBI says that X amount of cocaine comes from South America, X amount of opium comes from Afghanistan. How is it that you can pinpoint Osama bin Laden in a cave, but you can't pinpoint hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars of shipment of cocaine and opium crossing your border? Why is it that you can see trivial stuff, but you can't get to the core? There was and I played a clip of the guy who was Tricky Dick, Richard Nixon advisor, and how he talked about that Richard Nixon and his team used the influx of drugs into urban America to break up families, to incarcerate, and they wanted to use that to demonize urban America. But they could not comprehend this because they believed that these people were so morally high. And you saw the man get impeached. You saw the man break into the Democratic caucus building. You saw all of it, and yet you still can't comprehend that it was a concerted effort to flood urban America and demonize urban America for corporations so that they can have money. They can have an influx of free labor in these prisons so that they can make money like they always do. It was hard for them to comprehend this. And I asked these questions because all of this has to do with the violence. All of this has to do with the war. All of this has to do with the economics, the breakdown in economics in America. Rashid, I'm gonna bring you in a minute, but I want to bring this point home with this conversation that I had. And so you can stop people at the border, but you can't stop shipments of cocaine when you have hundreds and even thousands of cocaine sniffing dogs. You have X-ray machines. You can't stop shipments, boatloads of shipments, cargo planes loads of shipments of guns. And why are they making their way to urban America? Why didn't they make their way to suburban America? Is this to absolve the people who are committing the crime? No. You handle the ones who are committing the crime, even though some of them are doing it in ignorance, but you can't stop there. You got to get the people who are perpetrating the crime, because no person in urban America owns trains, planes, hardly any own huge trucking companies, and they don't own shipping containers or ships with shipping containers on them. So if this is the case, then who is making the big money? And why? If we don't get to the underlying root, then this goes on in perpetuity. You understand? And who is the greatest beneficiary? When a person wants to solve a murder case, or a crime. They go to motive, opportunity, and who benefits the most, right? Why does that reasoning stop with this? Huh? I ask these questions because these are legitimate questions that should be asked that are never asked. So now you see the violence is skipping. It's in urban America, but now it's spreading across America. But these are the ramifications of policies instituted by the American government. From Tricky Dick to Ronald Reagan, who doubled down on Tricky Dick's thing. I know he didn't come after that, but I'm saying he doubled down. Remember Nancy? Just say no to drugs. Ronald Reagan said he was going to double down on the policy of Tricky Dick. Then Bill Clinton, the 3-strike laws. What does that have to do with the breaking up of families? Because they refuse to help families. They passed all of these laws, which you are not aware of, that if you are struggling or something like that, that the mother must be a single mother to get help from the government. So then it became cool not to be married and for someone to live because they were trying to escape those laws. But now we see an explosion of this, but where did it come from? It came from the policies of America. And without addressing those problems, you look at the collapse. Well, first you look at the degradation, the decline, and then you look at the fall and collapse of the American Republic, which means the fall and collapse of the American Empire, which means the fall and collapse of the Western world. You see how that is connected? And then when you look at what's going on, and I'll bring Rashid on the screen. Rashid, let me finish this thought and bring you in. But I just Googled this. Let me go back a second and tell you the words that I put in for the tribute. I just Googled it like 2 minutes before we went on the air. Where is it? Let's get that one. I guess I must have typed my screen. Oh, here it is. I Googled these keywords. U.S. mass shooting in 2023. And a list of things came up, right? And the first one came from CNN. You have the New York Times. You have the Guardian News, which is a British newspaper. You have Wikipedia. You have Reuters, which is a British publication. You have the LA Times. You have NBC News. You have Statista. You have Al Jazeera. You have ABC. You have WiseVoter.com. You have Mass Shooting Tracker site. All of the and a whole host of other things. But the first thing that comes up when you look at mass shootings in the U.S. and there were multiple mass shootings yesterday, right? And as I said, some people said some of these are psyop operations. Some of them could be, but that does not deflect from what is going on. People are dying. Terror is being and fear is being instilled into the hearts and minds of the populace. And when you have fear, a fearful public, a fearful population, how can you concentrate on the progress of a nation? So listen, the CNN one, the title of it is 3 weeks and 39 mass shootings. This is America in 2023. This is CNN's headline. So, but America compartmentalizes these mass shootings. They don't see these things as rejection of sound policies or rejection of sound thinking or rejection of morality or ethics. They see this as, what? I don't know why this happened when you have a TV screen full of nothing but shooting. You want to hold rappers responsible for their lyrics, and yet you ignored the shooting that took place when in Rambo, when Rambo goes and kills off a whole nation. Arnold Schwarzenegger gets his guns, I'll be back, killing people left and right. This is the culture of America. So violence is as American as apple pie. So in the CNN article, it says 3 weeks and 39 mass shootings. That means there have been more mass shootings than there have been days in this year. Think about that. This is America in 2023. Rashid, I know you have something to say on this matter, so I'm gonna let you speak, and then we're gonna, continue covering more and more news. We're trying to show them that this is the apocalypse. This is Armageddon. Welcome to Armageddon, baby. We see the 4 horsemen everywhere in America and around the globe. Go ahead.
America is set up on violence because it was born in violence, right? The civilized people of Europe, when America was set up, they wouldn't come on. They said it's the wilderness, it's savages and stuff over there. And so everybody had, if you are a civilized society, why would everybody need a gun? I remember all of the family back in the 70s, and Archie Bunker was sitting up there talking about he was going to stop hijacking. And his solution was pass everybody in the airplane had a gun. And then after you land, then you pick up all of the guns. That's the way they think. Everybody needs a gun. If you got somebody to get pissed off, he starts shooting. Mm-hmm. A civilized society, most of them of Europe, most of the place where it's so-called civilized, they don't have that. If you got just a few people have, but mainly the people are. And here in America, you see with his culture of violence, and you talk about, if you don't take away my gun, get out of my cold, dead corpse. He loves violence. He's baptized in it. His senators are baptized. You see him running all around the world talking about, I'll kill you. We'll bomb. He is a violent culture, a war-making culture. And as we go back to what the scriptures say, what does the scripture say about the God that comes in the day of the resurrection? He will put an end to the man who loves to bring war.
Make war.
And who's more violent than America? Right?
That's right. And what did Martin Luther King say?
The one they claim. Wait a minute. The one that they claim to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Martin Luther King called.
They go to church every Sunday hollering about. Go to church every Sunday hollering about how much of a good Christian he is, and more violence they got in war zones.
Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to show you, and some of this stuff is not palatable to a lot of people because it puts the mirror in America's face and it shines a light on her policies. And you got to do this if you want to inform people, even if you alienate others who don't want truth. They may say, oh, those are black guys, like the guy did yesterday. Or he might be a Muslim, or he might be a Christian. How such as those are little red herrings that they use to just try to discredit you. But he never attacked the truth that we were giving out. And this is what we're saying. These are facts. And we're willing to put these facts on a scale against anyone and show them that these are blowback effects of American policy, not just her going into Syria, not just her going and disregarding international law or using international law whenever it suits her. You notice the Western world are talking about the sovereignty of Ukraine. I was looking at something, what is his name? Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General. And he was speaking in a conference and he was talking about how we just cannot let Russia win in Ukraine. Because if Russia wins in Ukraine, then that means that they will be rewarded for ignoring international law, bombing countries whenever they want to, invading countries whenever they want to. See, this is projection. This is projection. They didn't say that when they bombed Yugoslavia and dismantled a nation. They didn't just bomb Yugoslavia, they partitioned it into multiple nations. And they did it at a time when Russia was weak after the fall of the Soviet Union. Years later, they moved on
The same thing
Yugoslavia
that they
because
want to do to
Yugoslavia
Russia.
was a core part of the Russian sphere of influence. And so they demonized Slobodan Milosevic. And then they made promises to Russia, and they made promises to Serbia, and they made promises to other enclaves of Yugoslavia. And as soon as NATO troops went in there, they helped to push sectarian and ethnic strife. And then they justified the partitioning of Yugoslavia. This is a European nation. So we're not just talking about African nations. We're talking about what they're doing everywhere. They've done that in Sudan. Sudan. Let me say this. They did that in Sudan. Let me tell you something about Sudan. You got Sudan and you got South Sudan. America, France, Germany, and Great Britain, and the other former colonial nations. They went into Sudan pretending that they wanted Darfur because they had found out that Darfur had a huge amount of untapped oil, gas, gold, and other mineral resources. But they couldn't get their hands on Darfur, so they had to continue to use their campaign about Darfur the same way they're doing Free Tibet. They did that with Darfur in Sudan. And so what they did, they found a few people who wanted power and who wanted to rule and who would play ball. So they armed and trained them, and they put them into a militia to fight against the legitimate government and the legitimate military of Sudan. And then with international pressure, sanctions, and a drought that was ravaging Sudan, the Sudanese finally came and said, we'll have a vote on partition. But guess what? Germany, I'm talking about Germany, Germany, the biggest economic driver of Europe, had already printed out South Sudan's currency 2 years before there was even an agreement on a referendum for South Sudan to be partitioned from Sudan. They wanted to break off Sudan. You see, this is a pattern. This is a pattern. And you don't think, so when we look at them talking about an American Civil War and how America might break up into parts, you don't think this is blowback from that stuff there? Go say what you have to say, Rashid. I had to just get that thought out.
Sudan, the former Sudan, had more landmass than the United States, right?
Yes, it was almost as big as the United States. It was almost as big as the United States.
And what's going on is, as I was talking, Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, made a statement that they got too much land mass over there. They need to be balkanized and broken up. See, they have, like, once again, the politicians are represented. What is it? America, a politician, the same mindset. If I won't take a gun to it. If I want to go, if you have something in a country that I want, well, then let me go and commit war to you. Start bombing you up and stuff. These people are baptized in violence, and you can't get mad at somebody that, like you said before, somebody wants to defend them 10 miles away from America, then America go and start bombing them country and then talking about that they the terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if you look at the situation around the globe and you see all of these hot spots, they're presented in the Western world as third world nations fighting, and whether it's in Latin America or whether it's in Africa or whether it's in Asia, they present this as third world nations fighting. They don't tell you that uh, the reason that there's sectarian strife or division is because of colonialism. Like when you look at the situation in Pakistan and India, that's a fallout from British occupation. If you look at the war between the civil war in Pakistan that produced Bangladesh, that was a fallout over colonialism. If you look at the standoff between China and India on the Chinese Indian border, that is a fallout of colonialism, where the British pulled out after occupying parts of China and all of the Indian subcontinent. The Chinese asked the British to make things right and give us back the land that you stole from us. But to foment a crisis and to foment problems and stuff like that, what happened was, and you guys I got my window up, so it's stuff going on outside, so you gotta excuse the noise. I can't stop what's going on outside. So if you hear a lot of noise in the background, stuff like that is coming from there. We have the window up. But again, the British figured it was better to leave these festering problems in place so that later on they could blow up, and then the British and the West could come in and be the peacemakers and rule all of them again. So all of these things that you see going on around, look at what's going on with South and North Korea. That's a holdover from what? U.S. colonialism. Look at what's going on between North Korea and Japan. The United States keeps up in the tension. Japan and China, they keep up in the tension. Look what's going on between Russia and Georgia. Russia in Armenia now. Russia in Azerbaijan. Russia in Ukraine or Estonia or Latvia. All of these nations were part of the Soviet Union. But America in the West continues to get involved in called ethnic strife, division, and hatred and animosity so that they can rule. If I can break you up, if I can partition you, then I can rule you, because eventually you'll be in a weakened state and then I can do whatever I want to do to you. You understand? So we're seeing the four horsemen of the apocalypse riding on their horses, and we see that the world that you've known, you will soon know no more. Now, I want to position it to something that was said. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. You guys give me a second.
Kashmir is a perfect example of what you said. A perfect example of what you said. But it left that festering. And what India and Pakistan had, what, 3 or 4 wars over that country. Here's a Muslim country, Hindus, and you ain't gonna never have nothing but problems over there. But it was set up the British.
Yeah.
Have in a country that some guy that want to be the leader who's not, and then he'll go around and he'll fundle guns in there, and then there you next thing you got a war going, and the one that's starting the trouble is the one. Then he'll come in and say, "Well, let me make let's make an agreement." That's exactly what happened in the Sudan.
Yeah, and what you just said about Kashmir, most people are unaware of that. That's a festering problem, as you said. But this is what happened. The West set up a monarchy, had a monarchy there, and they made the monarchy Hindu, and the monarchy ruled over the Muslim population. And the monarch was in trouble, and I think was nearing death or was in trouble, and signed over without the approval of Parliament, without the approval of anything, without the approval of the people, just itself to India, went to India. And Pakistan said, no, that's not how things work. That is not how things work. And so what happened was there was a that's why Kashmir was partitioned or whatever because of all of that stuff there. So yes. Uh, let's see. Let's see. I'm looking for something. Rashid, keep your thought on. I'm trying to find something. Um, where is it at? This is direct. Here we go. Here we go. Dmitry Medvedev. Rashid, I need you to continue to talk. I gotta plug in this other computer real quick. So talk to the people and continue along the lines of what we were just talking about of occupation and colonialism and these problems, because I want to transition to something that is going on that is major. Go ahead. I hope YouTube is, I'm not YouTube, but StreamYard is really messing up right now. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, they're messing with the mics and everything. Watch.
A little brother of Britain and British Empire. So now America had taken over and started doing this. That the sun had never set over the American, but the American empire was a lot more stronger than British empire, because they're a lot. It's a global empire now. They own their money is tied into everybody else's money. Are you back yet?
Yeah, I found it. I found it. And this is the article right here. It says U.S. plans threaten World War III. Ex-Russian President Dmitry Medvedev says, or Medvedev, whichever one you want to do, the Medvedev or Medvedev, it doesn't matter. It says Dmitry Medvedev or Medvedev, whichever one you want to say, revealed his view of what caused the Ukraine conflict and his country's international priorities. Now stop right there. I want you to understand that even though this man served as assistant to Vladimir Putin, and when Vladimir Putin was the mayor of St. Petersburg, I believe it was, in Russia, and Putin brought him to Moscow when he ascended to the premiership, when he became the prime minister. Then Putin became the president, and Putin also brought him and made him prime minister, and he served a few terms as prime minister. Then Putin stepped down and allowed Medvedev to become the president. And then after one term, Medvedev stepped down and Putin took over the presidency again, and Medvedev became the prime minister for a short time. And then he stepped down and became the head of the United Russia Party. Putin stepped down as the head of the United Russia Party, and Medvedev became the head of the United Russia Party. And then Putin appointed him as the co-chair or the vice chairman of the Russian Federation National Security Council. So this guy holds so much weight, right? I gave you a history of that, okay? And I'm doing it without looking at any papers or anything. I'm just off the top of the dome. So listen, it says Dmitry Medvedev revealed his view of what caused the Ukraine conflict and his country's international. The U.S. and its allies almost ignited a third world war by preparing to attack Russia, which had no choice but to do something about it, former President Dmitry Medvedev said on Monday. He was addressing the leadership of the ruling United Russia, see that? The United Russia Party in Moscow. Our party should help the people around the world understand that the ongoing special operation was a forced and last resort response to preparations for aggression by the U.S. and its satellites, Medvedev said. It is obvious that the world came close to the threat of World War III because of what was happening. Medvedev also described a serious crisis that the UN and other international institutions, which were created resolve international disputes, but have been turned into a battlefield by the West instead. Our opponents are trying to enlist as many votes as possible in support of their anti-Russian initiatives using underhanded means such as economic pressure, extortion, and political bribery, Medvedev said, adding that the main mission of Russian diplomacy remains countering this cynical line by the West. Medvedev was president of Russia between 2008 and 2012, after which he became the chairman, of the ruling party and prime minister. He stepped down as PM in 2020 to run the National Security Council, as I said. Though the West considered him a liberal during his presidency, Medvedev has been blunt and outspoken about the special military operation in Ukraine since it was launched in February 2022. Just last week, he ridiculed the World Economic Forum in Davos and warned the West that the current conflict is existential in nature for Russia, which should be kept in mind when it comes to nuclear weapons and their possible use. What he was saying is this: America, you better remember that we are not on your border in Canada, or we're not on your border in Mexico. You're on our border in Ukraine and in Georgia. And this is a threat to our national security. And if you continue to do what you're doing, the only option would be military. This is what he was saying. These are code words for what he was saying. So he was speaking to the people, but over the people, to the major audience of the Pentagon, to Washington, D.C., to Brussels, to London, to Berlin. He was trying to warn them of the major ramifications of this imperialistic policy to beat everybody down so that you can rule. Remember yesterday we played a clip, and the clip was talking about how America, she was good with China until the friendship didn't work no more because China was no longer submissive to America. And America's goal was to be the dominant power and seek hegemony at all costs. Now I want you to think of this, and I'm gonna let Rashid chime in on this. I want you to think about this. And I want you to see the madness in the policies of America in the Western world. Because these small satellite nations that used to be part of the Soviet Union, and these small European nations that used to exert power globally, the reason that they are kowtowing to America is because they want some semblance of importance and relevance and power. And they believe that America is still the most dominant power on the planet, and they would rather be a jester in America's court than to strike out on their own and try to do what's right by other nations, okay? So the mindset of the American establishment is a lunatic berserker mentality. And what I mean by that is this: Russia is by and far not only the largest country in the world, right? It also has the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth. I'm gonna say that again. Russia is not only the largest country on Earth by land mass, it is also by far the largest nuclear power on Earth, even superseding the United States. Okay? With that in mind, what rational, sane person would go to the doorstep of a person that is armed to the teeth and try to surround them with guns so that you can hold them at gunpoint to be submissive to your policies and your ways and your actions? That is like Rashid having an array of military weapons in his house. And I'm here in Florida, and I'm telling his neighbors, listen, I'll give you $10 a week. Go buy your gun, and I'll pay $10 a week. But I want you to hold those guns at Rashid's house. If he makes a false move, then I'm going to come at Rashid. The sheer lunacy of that means that the nations that I'm paying is cannon fodder. The sheer lunacy of this is if Rashid said, hey, Rashid just killed or shot my daughter or shot my son. Guess what Rashid is going to do? Not only is he going to mow down the people who held the guns and at his house, keeping his family confined, but he's going to go after the person who ordered the hit. Do you see? But they don't think like this. Rashid, what say you about this? I mean, it's absolute lunacy.
Medvedev, he was supposed to be the hawk. I mean, the dove between him and Putin, right? He was the guy who loved the West, right? And over time, he's seen some of the things of America, and now he's the hawk and Putin is the dove.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What caused Putin to change his mind? See, when Putin first came president in the early 2000 to 2008, he wasn't against America. He even told the European Union that he was looking at him as an orc. No, I can't have this orc and I. But seeing how they were doing their stuff, and they kept pushing up to his borders, and when they made an agreement, like we said before, to not kill Gaddafi, he was supposed to take internal exile. And when they killed him on live television, they said Putin watched
They're messing with your microphone now.
So
Putin
what he
watched
did
over and
was
over again. Say
him
again.
and China, they made what they were going to do to Libya, Gaddafi. And from that point on, they've been against the European, the empire's grand strategy. And they set on collision course.
And you know, they actually tried to use Medvedev against Putin. They when his term was up, they were telling Medvedev not to step down and run again, even though he had an agreement with Putin that he would step down. Putin elevated him to power, and they were trying. The United States and NATO were trying to say, well, if you do such and such, then we won't encroach anymore. We'll do this and we'll do that. And so they were trying to start strife in between the leadership of the Russian Federation. So since we're on Medvedev, I'm going to play an older clip of him right as the war or right before the war started. I think it's right after it started. And this is him. So you'll get a chance, some of you who don't know who Dmitry Medvedev or Medvedev is. He was considered, as Rashid say, the dove. He was considered the Atlanticist. And Putin was showing him in some of the intelligence community of Russia was showing him the actions of the US. And he saw this stuff and it changed his mind. So I want you to listen to him. This is about 4 minutes.
The US has taken similar actions on multiple occasions in the past, and in regions that are in no way part of their immediate interests. These countries are not their neighbors or a threat to the US. Take Yugoslavia, Iraq, Afghanistan. But the US's military actions have never resulted in such a massive and consolidated response from the West. No one responded to a wedding party bombed in Afghanistan by shutting down European clothes shops in the US. There were no other repercussions either. Why? Why are we witnessing such a powerful response to Russia's moves that you say are fully justified in terms of our security?
Now, this is not going to sound like an insight, but clearly the US believes it is a nation outside international law, above everyone else. Following the collapse of the USSR and an end to the bipolar world order based on the standoff between NATO and the Warsaw Pact, the US saw itself as the winner and the sole beneficiary of the Soviet Union's demise. While in reality the Soviet Union broke up not because of NATO's activities, but for internal reasons. And that's why they behave accordingly. They believe they cannot be brought to justice, but they have the right to judge everyone. They are the ultimate decision makers. They have the right to do whatever they want. There are a number of drivers behind this behaviour. First of all, economically, the US is a very strong country. Secondly, it issues the main reserve currency with vengeance, continuing to pile up its domestic debt. In fact, it is the whole world that is the US's creditor. The entire world could be struggling, plunging into crises while the Americans are printing dollars. That is why they now feel completely unpunished in this respect as well. Exactly for that reason, the US's actions in Afghanistan, Iraq and Vietnam a few decades ago have never come any legal scrutiny by the international community. However, at the time of the Vietnam War, the Soviet Union was still alive, pushing for quite heavy debates at multilateral platforms. The Soviet Union, as you know, was helping Vietnam back then. The US pursued its policy for a long time. We all remember the way it ended, mind you. Vietnam is thousands of kilometers away from the US. Now, it's a fact few people remember, even in this country, because it was a long time ago. But my Vietnamese friends said the US intervention in Vietnam throughout much of the 1960s killed over 1 million Vietnamese. Just think about it, over 1 million. Take a look at the map and see for yourself where the US is and where Vietnam is. Still, the US went in and over 1 million people died as a result. Even then it was never widely condemned, although we had the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union in place. And after the Soviet Union disappeared from the world map, along with the Warsaw Pact, the US got absolutely out of control. They think they can do whatever they want. Yugoslavia is a case in point. We saw utter disregard for international law, the use of the armed forces and weapons by a number of countries, including depleted uranium ammunition. Was there any uproar? No. They realised they could go ahead, concocted a justification and got away with it. Today, some European leaders admit, well, yes, maybe they overreacted a little, but it does not go any further. Again, the US behaves this way around the world because they think there is no longer any competition. But they are wrong. Life does not stand still, prompting new developments in international relations and new countries emerging as strong powerhouses. It means new centres of gravity in international relations are being shaped. Take the People's Republic of China, India, and the Russian Federation. The unipolar world is over. The US is no longer the master of planet Earth.
So you see, that was Dmitry Medvedev talking about America and how she goes thousands of miles away and wages war. She also wages war within her borders. That's why she has empowered her police forces and her border forces the way she's empowered them. You go to any sheriff's office or you go to any police station nowadays, they have military gear. Why is that? Why is that? Is she preparing for a war at home? Why do they have to have armored vehicles? Huh? Why do they have to have battlefield weapons? Do they think that there's going to be a battle in the field that they're going to battle on or the streets of America? Do they know something that they're not telling everybody else? Well, look, again, as we talked about this, I want to bring your attention to something because we're talking about these four horsemen, these apocalyptic four horsemen, okay, in scripture, in Bible. And Medvedev said that America can get over it. In words, he said she's no longer the sole power or master of planet Earth. There are new spheres of power. There's a multipolarity now and not just a unipolar world, okay? Now, America is doing this, and going back to what Rashid and I were talking about a few minutes ago, and we were talking about her pushing up to Russia's border. And I talked about the insanity of this. I'm going to redirect your attention to something that Scott Ritter said. And I know I played this before on the show, but I'm going to go back to this clip that Scott Ritter said in an interview. Scott Ritter is the former UN's chief weapons inspector. He was, I think, a major intelligence. He was a major in the Marines, and he was an intelligence officer. And we had the pleasure of hosting him on this platform. And I'm going to go and I'm going to play this clip of what he has to say about America and her military, especially concerning Russia. Okay. So this is about 4.5 minutes. So be patient with us and we'll come back after this. All right.
Rights that you have as a human. And we've forgotten how to do that with Russians. We view them as somehow less than human. And some of the stuff you read on social media is just disgusting about how we treat the Russians, how we denigrate them. And I blame that on the elite, because the elite is the people who have the PhDs, they know better. It's not like they can say, well, we were deceived. No, you have the PhD. You went to university. You had the opportunity to study this, but you chose to play the game. You chose to play the game of, if I want to get promoted within the system, I have to become a Putin whisperer. You chose not to be intellectually honest, not to be a righteous person and learn the truth and head down the path of truth. Because the path of truth in the American system doesn't lead upward. It leads at best parallel. More often than not, it leads down. But that's the path a righteous person takes. The people that sell out are the people that buy into the lie. And with Russia, unfortunately, they buy into the lie. So yeah, do we believe we can beat Russia? I'll tell you, there's no military professional that believes we can beat Russia. I mean, the people that know what I know that, again, like I said, if I'm going to fight Mike Tyson, I better start training like Mike Tyson. And we haven't been. I mean, we used to. I have to tell you right now, when I was in the Marine Corps, I'd get in the ring with anybody. But me and my Marines would get in the ring with anybody, and we'd win. We'd win. Why? Because I spent 220 days in the field training in realistic live fire conditions to fight the Russian enemy under, the real Russian enemy, how they really were arrayed. And we trained. And nothing comes easy. I mean, you can be a good boxer, then you take 6 months off. You ain't a good boxer anymore. You're fat. To be a good Marine, you got to train all the time. It never stops, never stops. Second you stop, you die. We used to do that. We don't do that anymore. We don't have that mindset. We don't have that money. We don't have that budget. So our military, first of all, we spent 20 years running around the Middle East, kicking down doors of civilian homes in Iraq and killing herders and farmers in Afghanistan. I know there's some bad guys out there that we killed too, but by and large, we weren't playing on the big stage. We were playing on the little stage, and we got beat. But the thing is, we forgot how to fight on the big stage, and today we don't know it. Now we're looking at what Russia's doing in Ukraine. We can't fight that war. We don't know how to fight that war. We only know how to go in and kick down doors in Iraq. We don't know how to put 300,000 men online with tanks and artillery in Ukraine like the Russians and Ukrainians are doing.
So do you think the reason America continues to provoke Russia is due to a psyche of exceptionalism and being inebriated off of the power and the influence that the U.S. empire used to have?
Well, it's not just that. Yes, I mean, we are in many ways living in the past, but there's a reality of it too. Let's put it this way. You know that thing we call the American dream that very few people have, a lot of people want to have, and some people will never have? It's based upon our nation consuming X amount of resources because it's expensive to have the American lifestyle. We live expensively. But when you take a look at the resources America has, it's X minus whatever number you want to give. Where do we get that number? From the world. And we can't get it at market prices because then we couldn't live the American dream. The American dream is about living with affordability. So we have to get things at less than market value. Now, how many people, when they go into business, say, I'm willing to sell my inventory at a loss? No one. But we expect the world to sell their inventory to us at a loss. You have to sell it cheap. And if you're not willing to sell it cheap, then we will overthrow your government and replace it with a government that's willing to sell it cheap. We will manipulate your economy. We will sanction you. We will bully you. We will invade you. We will occupy you. We will kill you. That's the American way of interacting with the world. We aren't the friends of anybody. Nobody is our friend. Everybody is a mark. And we're the con man, running around, running the greatest con on earth. And when the con doesn't work, then we become the hitman. Now, how is it that
he can say that, and there was no blowback from the guy that came and visited us yesterday. But we say it, and we got to be Muslims or black people or immigrants or something like that. I'm wondering. See, there has to be an underlying issue here because truth is truth. You understand? And regardless of who is saying it, it does not delegitimize truth. Okay? So in that clip, you hear him say, no military man believes that the United States can beat Russia. Then why is she doing what she's doing? Pump fake. See, when you, as Rashid like to say, it's almost like a man who's been sitting on that throne for a long time. He's been sitting on the throne for a long time, and he refuses to get off that throne. And he is going off the air of who he used to be, and the power and influence that he used to exert. And that's still, if you do it real good, you can pump fake a lot. You can pump fake a lot. But the nations are starting to see, hey, man, you can't even beat these little Rudy Poos. So how are you going to beat me? And this is why the world is moving closer and closer to more and more war. Not just one war, multiple wars that are going on right now. And there will be multiple wars going on until America is removed from the seat of authority globally. Because she does not know how to yield. She does not know how to put her military or her policies or her politics in reverse. Even if she sees that she's heading toward this brick wall because of arrogance, because of the thought of who she used to be and the power and influence that she once exerted, she continues to go towards that brick wall. And you know what she does? Instead of going at it 30 miles an hour, she puts her foot on the gas. She's in a Ferrari. The engine is about to fall out, and she's going 190 miles an hour at the brick wall because she wants to prove a point. This is what we see on the international stage, and it brings us closer and closer to an economic collapse. Because you see, Scott Ritter, Rashid, I see you back in the booth. He was having problems again. I see him back in the booth now. I looked down and saw. I'll bring you in a second. But you see, Scott Ritter, he talked about how all of that is connected to the economy, how all of that is connected to trade. The guy that came on yesterday talked about we live in a great country. And Rashid and I had no problems or qualms with him saying that. But then we have to ask, how does the American people live the way they live? How are they afforded these goods? How are they afforded these debts? How are they afforded the lifestyle that they have? It's through pillaging everybody else. See, and I'm the best at analogies, so I'll give you an analogy. You come up in a family, and all you know, oh man, we live in a big house. We got nice cars. We got money all the time. You're not privy to the fact that your father and your mother are scamming people and robbing people or selling drugs. And most times, oft times, that when you find out, you really don't do anything to correct that because the lifestyle is a lifestyle that you have grown accustomed to. You might protest here and there with your mouth, but you really do nothing to change the policies of that household. That's America. So you are afforded these lifestyles, you are afforded these goods, but at the cost of the world. How long do you think that can last? As a matter of fact, you don't even have to answer that. We'll go into the economics behind all of this. And I just talked to my wife. She just came to the door. She said, we can extend it just a little bit longer. She just said that to me. So we can go. Rashid, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to let you say something. And then I'm going to go to this article. And then I got a couple clips I want to play for the people. You there? Rashid, are you there? Okay, I hear you now.
That shows you somebody else. You're not.
Oh man, he's out. He's out. He's out. We got to bring him back in. We got to bring him back in. Um, Again, you see this every time on the show. But listen, the ramifications of it. A lot of people don't understand that the reason I named this show, Welcome to the Apocalypse. Death, famine, war, and conquest have arrived. Have arrived. The reason I named it is because this is biblical. What is happening is biblical. And a lot of people don't study the Bible, so they don't understand. And we are looking in real time, not something you go to the church and the preacher is preaching about the Armageddon coming. No, we're in the midst of it right now. Never before in the history of man have they had so many destructive weapons, the likes of which could annihilate the entire population of the planet Earth. And never in the history of man have we had people who are in control of these weapons with a lunatic berserker mind state, an uncompromising, unyielding mind state, right? And never before, even the empires before never expanded the breadth of the whole globe. We see the British and the US empire one and the same. And it expands the globe over, and they refuse to give up what they deem is their property and their right, their inherent right. 800 known bases, 850 known bases, thousands more training facilities. They got all kind of names for this stuff to keep the real numbers from being known. This is truly a global empire, the likes of which was never seen before. And so if this is, and I want you to look at something, let's reason together, okay? The Bible tells us, come, let us reason together. All right. And so a lot of us, we don't use sound thinking. So we don't reason together. Okay. So according to the dictionary, let's go to the dictionary, okay? Because I like for us to get a definition of what we're talking about. Here we are. It says reason, a cause, explanation, or justification for an action or an event. Cause, grounds, ground, basis, rationale, motive, motivation. All right. The power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic. That is what reason means. So let us do as the Bible tells us and let us reason. Come, let us reason together. All right. Now, we see a power unlike any global power in the likes of the last 5,000 to 6,000 years. We see a military that has expanded around the globe and refuses to come home. We see an economy that had trillions and trillions of dollars in the coffer. But this same nation that has that has spread death and destruction around the globe for the benefit of their population, but more so for the benefit of the elite. Now, since we know that, because we have historical facts, we have a track record and a trail that we can point to yesterday, today, and even tomorrow, because we see America's plans, right? If we know that, and we have any inkling of prophecy or Bible, we know that God said that he would come and remove the one who delighted themselves in the making of war. Who is more militaristic on the planet Earth today than America? Not only is it the US military, but she's militarized every other place. She has the Summit of the Americas, where she goes and dictates policies to them. She has the AFRICOM, where she has militarized Africa. She has NATO, the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, that goes around and vandalizes, victimizes, and occupies nations everywhere. She has just created AUKUS, which is a loosely grouping of colonial nations to confront China in the Pacific. Now, I ask you, by definition of what we just found out, who is more militaristic, or who has been more militaristic than America and the American empire? And if we come to a sound judgment, a rational conclusion, we have to admit, even though we might not want to admit this, we have to admit that it is America and the Western world, America specifically, and the colonial Western world in general. And if this is the case, and we claim to be followers of Christ, and we claim to be believers in the Bible, then you can't pick and choose what you're gonna believe, because now we're looking at God's work, because He says that He would come and remove the ones who delighted themselves in the making of war. Who makes more war on the planet Earth than America? I ask you that. And I'm gonna leave that out there in the ethersphere, not the hemisphere or the stratosphere, but the ethersphere. Okay. I see Rashid back in the booth. I'll try to bring him back on in a second. I was trying to click on his picture, but they would not. I couldn't. While I was talking to you all, I was tapping on add to screen, but it wouldn't do it. So I'm gonna wait a few seconds, a few minutes, and see if it'll do it in a minute. They're messing with him real bad. But all of this militarism, all of this occupation and war is leading to the downfall of America and her military and political might and influence. And I was just looking at the situation. Remember, we're covering death, famine, war, and conquest, right? And we've been talking on a lot on the lines of the death that she is now being made to suffer within her borders, and the death that she has spread around the world through her wars and through her acts of conquest. But we have yet to talk on the famine part of the situation. Okay? So when people are not able to earn a living, when people are not able to sustain their lifestyle, panic, fear, and loathing and despair sets in, right? And this becomes a monster all of itself. Let's go to the economic collapse blog, because we're going to talk about something, okay? Bear with me. Rashid, I'm gonna try to click on you in another minute. I'm trying to see if the system will refresh, because every time I click on it, it won't add you to the screen. But stay in the booth. So listen, the economic collapse blog has an article out, and it was out yesterday. And it says the job cuts that are coming are going to be super brutal, not just brutal, super brutal. Okay? Now, for us to understand what he is trying to convey to us, let us see what these words mean. According to the definition of super, right? According to the definition of super, it means especially, very, very good or pleasant or excellent, superb, superlative, first rate, first class, superior, right? So we're looking at a first class, first rate beatdown of the workers in America. Is that not right? And it also says brutal, savagely violent, not just violent, savagely violent, savage, cruel, bloodthirsty, vicious, ferocious, barbaric, barbarous, unsparing, unstinting, unadorned, unembellished, unvarnished, and bald. So we're looking at a what? A very bad day for the workers of America. Okay? It says in this article, and this is the first time I'm reading it with you all, okay? A lot of these articles, when I bring them up, I put them in the Google search engine or whatever, like, and we'll pull it up and we'll read it together. Excuse me. And it reads like this, and I don't think I'm gonna read the whole article, but I'm gonna read some underlining things in this article, okay? So the article reads as such: a shockingly large wave of layoffs have already begun, and we are being warned that much larger layoffs are coming in the months ahead. That is very chilling to hear, because job cuts announcements are already coming in so rapidly that I couldn't possibly share them all with you. I wrote about some of the major layoffs that are happening just a few days ago, and now I have more to share. We haven't seen anything like this since 2008, and many of you still have very painful memories of what the Great Recession was like. Unfortunately, America is now plunging into another severe economic downturn. Stop right there for a minute. When does recession turn into depression? I continually ask this because no one wants to use the word depression. So if you are suffering recession after recession after recession after recession, when does it get to the point of depression? Let's go. It says, unfortunately, America is now plunging into another severe economic downturn, and that means that there will be a tremendous amount of pain in the weeks and months to come. Earlier today, I was stunned to learn that a new survey has found that 20% of business economists expect employment at their company to fall in the coming months. A growing number of business economists expect companies to reduce their headcounts for the first time since the pandemic, a sign that the job market is beginning to cool amid an increasingly dark economic outlook. Okay, let's go a little further. That's according to a survey published on Monday by the National Association for Business Economics, which show that about 20% of the group's members expect unemployment at their company to fall in the coming months. So now you have a conundrum. Now, it says in this survey, representatives of the U.S. economy, is this survey a representative of the U.S. economy as a whole? If it is, that is truly chilling. Listen to what it says right here. Can you imagine what our economy would look like if about 1/5 of all U.S. companies started suddenly letting workers go all at once? Hopefully, that will not happen. But it appears that the coming layoffs in the banking industry could be his story. I've been telling you about this for the longest. See, what you don't get, and I'm going to finish this up, what you don't get when they tell you, only 20 banks closed in the last few months. They don't tell you that these 20 banks may have had 50 branches. They don't tell you that. So when you look at it, when they say it, they put it in such a soft term as to minimize the catastrophic losses. But like he says, but it appears that the coming layoffs in the banking industry, that means the banking industry is hurting too. The banking industry. These are the people who fund your mortgages, your cars, your borrowing. If they are hurting, what do you think the farmers are like who have to go to these banks to get loans to buy feed and to buy oil for their and gas for their tractors and farm equipment and to buy fertilizer? What do you think these people who produce the food that goes on the shelves of America feel like? Huh? We're going to find out shortly. It says, in fact, one expert is publicly warning that the job cuts that are coming are going to be super brutal. Banks are set to undertake the largest waves of job cuts in 15 years amid declining revenues. Industry watchers told the Financial Times the layoffs expected to be in the tens of thousands reverse a trend of widespread hiring and banks' reticence to let go of workers during the pandemic. The job cuts that are coming are going to be super brutal. Lee Thacker, owner of financial services head hunting firm Silvermine Partners, told the FT in a Saturday report. He didn't just say that the job losses will be brutal. This is what I said. He said that they will be super brutal. Of course, many would argue that the outlook for tech industry workers is even worse. At this point, tens of thousands of employees have already been laid off within just the past few months. Big tech giants have laid off tens of thousands of employees. Look at what just happened with Google. Look at Google, the largest search engine in the world. Look at what just happened at Amazon. Right? We're looking at something. I'm going to let Rashid chime in, and I'm going to finish this clip because I have something that is tied direct. It's amazing that this article comes out because I have something that's tied directly to this in the clips. So, Rashid, I know you have something to say on this subject right here. So go ahead. You have the floor. Hold on. Let's see if I try to unmute you. They're muting him. It says, hold on. Your mic is muted. You are muted. It says can't unmute your guest. Their mic isn't connected. So your mic isn't connected. It's not me. I can't unmute you. So go out and come back in. Maybe then it'll reconnect or whatever. All right. So everyone, while he's doing that, it says big tech giants have laid off tens of thousands of employees over the past few months as recession fears, persistent inflation, and rising interest rates continue to weigh on earning results. Now, stop right there. There was just a report out that there was inflation relief, right? Do you see how the government lies? They were just saying that big tech giants have laid off tens of thousands of employees over the past few months as recession fears, persistent inflation, and rising interest rates continue to weigh on earnings results. The likes of Google, Amazon, and Meta, meaning Facebook, have let go of nearly 40,000 employees combined in just a few weeks now. So, on that note, if these people are unemployed, if there is a banking crisis, remember that we are also going into a housing crisis. Remember that. We are also going into a housing crisis. And I was looking at an article last week that was talking about in over 300 markets, prepare for a downward spiraling housing market. I was reading that. So, with a black swan of the housing market, we talk about the used car industry that is going through it, the new car industry that is going through it. And now we look at the banking system that is in a tailspin along with these social media platforms and these giant tech businesses, right? And then on top of that, we look at a spiraling debt crisis from the American government. And we look at a lack of food on the shelves. And to get a few things, you got to go to 5 different stores to get the things that you used to conveniently get at one store. And then they don't have ample supply of it, or they don't have it at all. So that means now something is happening with the farms, with the packaging companies, and with the trucking. So what we're looking at is the arrival of famine and pestilence, right? want you to understand what's going on here. This one right here won't be nice. It's going to be super brutal. So with that said, think about this. The farmers have to go to yearly to get loans and stuff so that they can keep the farms going. Just a few months ago, there was a crisis in farming because they were going belly up. They were having to sell their cattle or shoot their cattle. Okay, I see you now. I see. Thank you. I'll bring you up here in a second. Rashid just sent me a message saying that he was back in the booth. Just months ago, they were talking about the historic loss of farms in America that had to deal with bad weather like flooding and cold weather and then extreme heat and drought. And on top of that, the lack of financing for them. So farmers were already in a very precarious situation, a very tenuous situation. And now we find out the banks that do the loaning are being hit bad. So that shows us that there's something going on behind the scene, behind the numbers, behind the show that they put on the news that they don't want you to understand. They don't want you to know. So we're going to drop a little bit on you and show you the dire consequence, the dire situation that American farmers are facing. And remember, this is also going on around the world where, one of the Nordic nations in Europe just closed down 3,000 farms. Over talking about the green movement, over 3,000 farms. Farmers in Europe are going belly up too. Ukraine, which was once considered part of the breadbasket of Russia, is in a state of war. Russia has been sanctioned, the fertilizer, the oil, all that stuff has been sanctioned. Do you not see that it is a catastrophe of that of Well, listen to this. Play a few clips. And I want you to see what is being said from the farm industry.
November food prices showed a 10.6% increase over last year. And because of things like drought, supply chain shortages, and overall inflation next year, you could see these prices pop even more. It's getting expensive to go grocery shopping. Good time to bring in Stephanie Nash. She's a dairy farmer in Tennessee. She joins us now. Stephanie, good morning to you. Do you see food prices going down anytime soon?
No, we're not going to see any change in the U.S. market for food prices for Americans. You know, we imported 57% more from Brazil for beef, 12% more in Mexico. I'm telling the government and our politicians and our leaders, what are you doing? What are you doing with American grown? How are you supporting our family farmers and ranchers? And how are you supporting Americans at the grocery store? They're paying anywhere from 10 to 18% more for products. And we need to fix that. We need to fix the way American runs and how we support our family farmers and ranchers.
You know, for people who don't understand how farming works, they're probably thinking, well, farmers are getting such high prices for their goods, they must be making out like bandits.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not getting communication to the public, right? You know, you have JBS, Cargill,
Right.
Tyson. They're making marginal record profits this year off family farmers and ranchers, while we see Texas beef selling record numbers because they have no water. And you're seeing California dairy farms sell off because they can't afford feed. And it's just crazy. I think the USDA needs to do a better job of implementing programs to feed Americans, to support American grown, and just be stronger. You know, you look at the markets, you look at imports and exports. We continue to support other countries, and we're not even supporting the American people.
You talk about shortages, a real possibility next year. How bad could it be?
You look at Ukraine, you look at Russia, you look at what's going on in the Netherlands. I think there's going to be a lot of food shortages next year. You know, Americans go to the grocery store with confidence. They can get the food that they need. And I think we take for granted what farmers and ranchers do around this country. We take for granted the products that we produce, the and products that we produce here in America, and we need to rely on that. We need to protect our rural communities and look for a future that is stronger in our food security.
Well, Stephanie, you're certainly putting out the message, and your message is very strong, and we understand. We wish you the best of luck. A difficult time, even when things are great. It's difficult to be a farmer, but it's especially difficult right now. Stephanie Nash in Tennessee, just south of Nashville, I believe. Beautiful part of the country. Stephanie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go into another clip. I'm trying to put a lot of them together because I know the time is limited and stuff, and then I'll bring Rashid back in. But pay close attention. I want you to see the dire consequences, and notice there's a theme here that a lot of this stuff is due to the policies of the West. Think about this: the war they didn't think of all of this blowback in financing and politics on a geopolitical scale, and on the food scale, the transportation scale, and all of that stuff, when they initiated this conflict between Slavic nations, Russia and Ukraine. They don't think things through. All they think about is American imperialism. And then they double and triple and quadruple down on foolishness. But listen, let's go a little further.
Corn is a staple of life in America. It is a key ingredient in so many parts of our lives, from the fuel we put in our cars to what's on the dinner table. The war in Ukraine and other factors around the world are pushing the price of corn up by almost 1/3 over the last year. That's part of why a trip to the grocery store or the gas pump is more expensive. 10 News reporter Vinay Simlai joins us to break down the impact from East Tennessee, and we're talking farm to table. Vinay?
We are. John, this is the price of corn from last year. This is this year. It's controlled by the world market, but farmers say it costs about double to grow than it did last year.
We've worked all year, looking forward to see what kind of harvest we're going to have.
On a crisp fall morning, David Richardson is ready to reap.
We've got an average crop.
His combiner picks up the corn stalk and separates the kernels, leaving behind the cob. He'll sell kernels by the bushel.
As a farmer, you don't have really control over the input prices or the sale prices.
David says he's lucky he has a decent crop this year. Even though the price of corn has gone up, it's not enough.
But not nearly to the point to offset the increase in input prices.
Add to that droughts in Tennessee.
West Tennessee's really been hammered.
Less than 15 minutes from David's farm, UT researcher John Goddard and his team are at a farm in Philadelphia where the soil fared worse.
So this soil right here is just absolutely powder dry.
Dry soil means less corn.
It should look like this all the way out.
If farmers can't produce corn, the price of everything goes up. Farmers feed the animals you eat with corn. Snacks and sodas you drink use corn syrup as sweeteners. The gas you fill your car with has ethanol, a corn byproduct.
So you're walking on corn and you're eating corn and you're driving on corn.
It's just another year with different challenges.
If farming was easy, everybody would do it.
After 4 generations, the family keeps its optimism for next year.
Keep faith that next year will be better.
Farmers I've spoken with whose farms are affected by the drought say their yields this year are about half of what they'd like. So half the corn, twice the price to grow it, and the prices are not keeping up. That means they're making less money for the same amount of work. It's a gamble, and it's a tough year for corn farmers in East Tennessee.
So you see the problem of the policies. See, they don't think, they're not deep thinkers in Washington, D.C. They're not deep thinkers in London. They're not deep thinkers in Brussels or Berlin. They are surface thinkers. They don't think about the ramifications of these policies. Every action will receive a greater, equal or greater reaction according to science. These are the laws of science. You can't bend and break the laws of science, or just because you don't agree with them, just toss them to the wind and don't expect them to apply. Only if you think you're exceptional do you do stuff like that, right? I mean, this is real. And you see me, I'm engaging back and forth in the chat also. And Rashid has been knocked off the out of the studio, I think twice since it's going. But what I'm trying to show you is that the policies of America is bringing about pestilence and famine. This is global. Now, I want you to listen to this also. We got some clips. We're going to try to play them. And we're going to try to get them to you so that you can be very, very informed about American policies and the ramifications of the policies of the Western world. This is not just about war. I continue to tell you that all of this stuff is interconnected. Oh, he just texted me, say he's back in the studio. He gets kicked out of the studio more than anybody. But anyway, this is not just about war. This is about policies and politics. This is about commerce. This is about trade. This is about farming. This is on every level. But the people in Washington and in London and Brussels and in Berlin and in Paris, they don't think deep enough. They only think what benefits them at the moment. And then when the moment overcomes them, then they'll panic and start trying to do this and do that. And then they set off earthquakes or all across the world and different things like farming and gas and trucking and stuff. They never knew that all of that would be a part of the war that they initiated in Ukraine. And it is breaking them. I'm gonna let Rashid say a few words, but I gotta play this clip. But I'm gonna let Rashid come in and say a few words beforehand. Hopefully they'll let his mic loose. Go ahead, Rashid. You there?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Are they gonna let him speak? I don't think they want to let him speak. Maybe if they knock him out the booth and put him back in, they'll allow him to speak this time. Or they may wait to the end of the show to allow him to speak. As you can see,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Are you there? I'm
Oh, it is what it is. That's what is happening. So you see it live on the air, okay? So you know that this is what's going on. Now, we got to continue on with the show, and we'll bring him in as he comes back through the thing. Man, they are tripping. Yeah, and listen, this is not, I don't think this is YouTube. I think this is the StreamYard. And we have another program that we're trying to stream through, but I don't know how to operate it right now. We have it, but I don't know how to operate it. My son knows how to operate it, but I don't know how to operate it because I'm not technically inclined. You know, I'm when it comes to technology, I'm a little dumb. But and I'm willing to admit that. But my son is the tech genius. Well, two of my sons are tech genius. My baby boy, who's 6 years old, about to be 7 this week, and he can unlock any phone and he can build his own apps and all of this stuff like that. My oldest boy in the house, he can reboot computers, fix them, and all that stuff like that. So I don't know where they get it from because I'm dumb as a log when it comes to it. But I want you to listen to this about the fertilizer, okay, and the price of fertilizer also. Pay close attention.
We just need warm weather too.
I'm a 5th generation farmer. My son farms with me and he's a 6th generation. And we farm about 1,900 acres, corn and soybeans.
That ain't very good, is it? So I said, let's just do our original plan. Okay.
Every day, every week, things just keep going up. Just like a menu at your local restaurant.
With COVID shutdowns, supply chain disruptions, and the war in Ukraine, we now have a deep concern about how we will get the food and fertilizer flowing efficiently, ensuring that our producers and those around the world have the necessary tools and continue to keep food on the dinner tables of people across the world. This is a monumental challenge.
So this one we got right here is our nitrogen for our corn. Corn needs nitrogen to grow.
My nitrogen price was $50 an acre a year ago. Now it's $150, and if I would have pre-purchased it, it'd have been more like $250 per acre just in nitrogen prices.
fertilizer is perhaps behind water, fertilizer is the most important ingredient determining yield for farmers. So demand is robust, but production is uncertain. And that's what the market is trying to price globally.
As far as affecting growers right now, it's not as big as what, on a lot of them, as what others are, because they pre-bought early before prices really got really high. But it has increased their amount of cost of production. So it brings their cost per bushel of production down to where they're not making as much, but still profitable.
Problems in Ukraine or problems in Brazil and Argentina, it all affects us.
There are many discussions on many boardroom levels of, what do we need to reshore? What's critical to maintain supply on the farm, in the factory, on the assembly line? And, investment from USDA is it's a long-term strategy, but it's needed.
Last year was terrible on the price of nitrogen, been terrible on the prices this year is just terrible too on potash, nitrogen, any form of nitrogen you want to talk about. The products that they had told us were going to cost us this certain price, and now they can't honor those prices and they've had to go up a lot. And the only thing we could do is go up with it. I mean, it's not what we wanted to do, but we had no choice.
The thing about it is we're okay with this crop season. There was enough in the supply chain, and yeah, prices have went up, but for our 2023 crop season is where we're really going to feel the crunch.
So I'm hoping for this fall, because that is a worry for farmers, is that I pre-bought last year. I was a good manager, astute to do that. But this fall I might be in trouble. But I hope we're going to see some relaxation of fertilizer prices.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other videos from USA Today to stay up to date with all the latest news.
So, do you see how there's a single theme in everything that they're saying? Every one of them are talking about the war in Ukraine. They're talking about Brazil. They're talking about Argentina, because these are big farm countries, right? What happened in Argentina? America tried to overthrow the president. She served 2 terms. She became vice president. They tried to get her up on corruption charges, this and this, and they wanted to break the alliance of the left wing leaders there. What happened in Brazil? They overthrew the most popular politician in the history of Brazil, in Lula, right? And put him in jail. And then he got out of jail and won the presidential election again. He has just become the president again. America wanted to privatize the farms in these nations. She wanted to privatize the big businesses and stuff, so that the West can just buy them up with pennies. Do you see how America is involved in everything that is now ravaging the globe? This is what I'm saying. The Western world, they have their hands in this, and they don't want any responsibility or liability for it. They want to pretend like these things are happening out of the blue. They don't want you to look at the policies. And this is something that nobody is pointing out, and it has to be pointed out. Because if you don't understand this, then you and the security of your family is at stake. If you black, brown, purple, red, green, orange, yellow, or polka dot, the truth will set you free. And some people don't like truth because they like to be held hostage and captive to the Walt Disney idea that is presented by the Western world. I mean, it's getting bad. Rashid, I'll bring you in a second. Let me play this clip here. This is a very short clip. Just look at what's going on here.
Americans stunned by the soaring price of eggs may have to wait months for some relief. After government data showed egg prices in December were up 138% from a year before, at $4.25 per dozen, some analysts say it could be 4 to 6 months before prices ebb. The primary driver has been a devastating outbreak of avian influenza, also called AI or bird flu.
One of the worst AI outbreaks that we've ever seen in this country. We've lost right around 43 million egg-laying hens.
The disease forced farmers to cull millions of egg-laying hens, decimating supplies which are now being rebuilt. Other price drivers are the costs of feed grain, fuel, and labor, all boosted by inflation. If both those input costs and the bird flu abates, prices could follow, says Brian Mosco-Giuri, a global trade strategist for egg supplier Eggs Unlimited in Irvine, California.
The hope is that, as we get into the summer months, we will see, repopulation kind of fully get us back to the levels that, we need to be to balance supply and demand. But there is a lot of uncertainty regarding, again, the spring migration and birds, moving back up north and flying over the country, and the amount of AI that they've been finding in the wild bird population. But I would say, hopefully the consumers have already seen, the highest price that they will see at the shelf, and will potentially see some relief in the future.
The surge in egg prices has led one U.S. farm group to demand a federal probe. The group Farm Action last week sent a letter to the chair of the Federal Trade Commission asking her to investigate record high profits at the top U.S. egg company, Cal-Maine Foods. An attorney for Farm Action said he wanted the FTC to look into whether, quote, consumers are being price gouged. The FTC declined to comment. Cal-Maine, which controls 20% of the retail egg market, reported last month its most recent quarter saw a 110% rise in net sales compared with a year earlier. Gross profits jumped more than 600% over the same period. In a statement, Cal-Maine said that higher production costs, along with avian flu, were contributing to higher prices.
So I'm gonna bring Rashid in and let him comment on this situation, because he's in California, and California produces what 52 or 53% of the vegetables across America. Rashid, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Go ahead. Thank God.
I feel like I'm on one of those vaudeville shows where they get the big giant hook and pull you out. Like they kept pulling me out and pulling me out and pulling me out. But getting back on real quick, what you got to understand for the audience out there, everything is real. We're taught that everything is real. You had what Brother Rashid was talking about before, about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. What? Pestilence. Wasn't that COVID? War. Don't we have war now? Now we're talking about famine, right? Actually, the 4 horsemen is not some 4 guys riding up and down the planet spreading pestilence. It's real, and you see it. And like I said, Russia and Ukraine is not the only first one. It's the first major big one. But then you got a Middle Eastern one and an Asian one. And it's going to engulf the whole entire world. And every knee on the planet will bow down. We had a leader, a so-called leader here a few years ago who said that we don't need no damn farms. It shows you how crazy this lunatic was. If the farm is what you eat from, if you get rid of the farm, tell me how long can you go to the supermarket? Supermarket is fed by the farm. Farm, no supermarket. No supermarket, no eating.
Yeah. And Tiger says they want feudalism. Gregory Mannarino kept talking about the feudalism that the governments are trying. And he said they want feudalism back. Lords that own everything and subjects that live on their land and work to pay off their debts. Well, the Greek, listen, these people are hungry for power and they will do anything to get power and maintain power. But listen, that's not just confined to the leadership. I tell you, that stuff permeates down throughout America. You think about this. You get $5 million. That's never enough. Now you want to get 100 million. When you get 100 million, that's not enough. You're trying to make $500 million. You get $500 million, that's not enough. You got to have $1 billion. And then from that, think about these people who have 5, 10, 20, $100 billion. And then the people are suffering within the borders of America. You think about that. And then what are you going to do? You can't take $100 billion with you. But this is what I'm saying. The government and the corporations, they think alike, and the leaders and these people who become billionaires, they think I got to protect my wealth even if I die. And while the masses are suffering on such a horrific scale, it's unimaginable. And then you think Jesus is going to have mercy on you when you be talking about you believe in Jesus? What kind of Jesus would believe? Come on. Go ahead, Rashid.
Well, the scriptures tell you about the people you were just talking about it. That he's the rich man, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did the Bible teach them about the rich man and what happened? As you say, everything, and you go out and find a wild chicken, and he ready to hang you up. Said that's my chicken,
right?
Or even you get some. They even got people down in South America. If you set up rainwater, and if you was collecting it, they saying that you are guilty of stealing the water because you're getting it from the earth. But it just
that's actually something down in South Florida. That is something in South Florida.
That shows you that these people are, like you said, they're insane. They didn't create the universe. Yeah. They didn't create the planet Earth. Not 1 second of land did they make. So how in the hell can you sit up there and say that you own the land? You don't own the water. It's the one that created the land and the water that owns it.
Yeah.
All you are is a thief sitting around saying that what you are and robbing other people for your own importance. And then thinking that, and then run around hollering about the thing. Once, like I said, once again, Jesus this and Jesus that. What would Jesus say about some cat that had $100 billion? What didn't he say in the scripture? Give away all that money and come follow me. Now tell me not which one of them would ever do that.
That's right. And look, and the mindset of these people, I'm talking about these corporate heads and the government, is this. They are so greedy for power. They're so greedy for to be have some type of influence. And they do this. I want you to think about the predatory nature of these people. They charge you for soil to plant. That's free. They charge you for water to drink when 2/3 of the planet Earth is water. They charge you for solar power, which is given by the sun, right? They even charge you to put air in your tire. Air. And most people, they go through this every day and they don't take the time to think about the mind state of the people who institute policies like that. These people are predatory and they are parasitic. They are feeding off the masses of the people, which themselves and to keep themselves at a certain position, but also to keep you at a certain position. And this is what is helping to bring down the American empire. And no one wants to talk about it. No one. And when you talk about it, people get offended and get mad because you are exposing the lie and the liars and the people who are doing the exploiting, because what this is financial rape. That's what it is. It's financial raping of the people.
What doesn't the Bible tell you about that man? What do they call it? The man's sin. It's sin, right? Robbery is sin. Murder is sin.
Yeah. Yes.
But he'll never tell you, he'll never say anything about that. What religious man can justify going 10,000 miles away from your home and stealing everything they got and bringing it to your home? Now, I know we sure know Jesus wouldn't be
Hey, that the way you put that, it was funny, man. The way you put it, and what religious man get justify going 10,000 miles away and stealing everything and bringing it back to their home? Well, in America,
and bombing up all the people and rape and like Scott Ritter, one of the other guys was telling you, put uraniated weaponry. That's a nuclear bomb
weapon. Yes,
basically.
That's a nuclear
Look
weapon.
what they did to Iraq. They shot all of that nuclear, created nuclear. What it is before they take the ammo out, they put it and nuke it, and they put that all throughout Iraq and the rest. They're doing it in Ukraine, and to put it all through the water. The people of Iraq are devastated. They showed all of some of the deformities, the birth defects. People born with one hand, no arms, no legs, no feet. They even had children, cyclops.
Yep.
One eye in the top of his head with two little eyes in idiots. But yet this man is, oh, but I'm a Christian. I'm going to church every day, every Sunday. But he's the backer of all of this evil. And then wonder, why is God doing this to me? Well, if there's a God in heaven, he's the first one they should get.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, like we were just saying, I'm going to piggyback off of that, no pun intended. But I know for a fact that they use depleted uranium and a low-yield nuclear weapon in Libya. Because Cynthia McKinney, two-time former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, was on my show before the brother and I had a show together. It was on my show and told me that America and NATO were using what would be considered as nuclear weapons in Afghanistan and in Libya and in Iraq. And this depleted uranium, what this is the uranium.
Syria, don't forget Syria.
Yeah, the uranium, you know, to make a nuclear bomb, you have to have a highly reactive uranium or plutonium. And what they do, they make with the leftover uranium, they use it and make ammo out of it. And they fire this stuff in cities everywhere. And it leaves contaminated areas for decades. And these nations are forced to deal with this contamination and the fallout of America and NATO using depleted uranium rounds, because that's what they say. They don't want to say they use banned weapons, because that is actually a war crime what they're doing using depleted uranium, because the United Nations, the one that the United States love to quote when they want to go to war with somebody, the United Nations had banned anything like that. But the United States, Israel, and NATO, they use depleted uranium and phosphorus.
Never believe anything about the UN words.
So, and you think
never believe anything that the UN says. The UN is there for other people, not for us. Whatever the UN says is good for them, not for us. You sit around and do all of this evil and stuff. I was thinking about that. The scriptures tell you that to be a good shepherd, future Egyptians. Now these psychopaths that's inside of the ruling class wouldn't think that they doing something like that. Even you come inside America and shoot up and have what do you call that? Fracking. Shoot highly populated chemicals deep down in the earth and destroy the underground water table of America. And then they should have a different program where they bring in the drinking water, and the drinking water you can set it on fire.
Yeah.
But like I say, but yet and still, he's a good Christian. Like I said once before, would Jesus do something like
that? So we're looking at that, and I want to play another clip, and we're going to continue. We're also going to continue on the lines of this talk tomorrow. Okay. I want to play another clip, but I don't think I'm gonna get to that clip because, again, as I said, wife's birthday is today, and I wasn't supposed to do anything but like an hour show, but she's allowed us to go an hour and 10 minutes over, and I'm getting these signals.
Hey, an hour and I don't want to another 30 minutes and another 30 minutes, another 30 minutes.
Hey, and I don't want to be on live and the bat comes across here and hit me on the head live on the air. I don't want that. So listen, everyone. I thank you for joining us. We're gonna have same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow. In closing, what do you have to say?
It's we are watching the fall of this world. People can't see. It is very hard for somebody that don't have an eye, a spiritual eye, to see and perceive what's taking place. And what's taking is the fall of the world. The Lord of the world, he is real. And he's bringing down what he said he will. Even if it don't come into your, be what you think it should be. But from what we see, he's right on time.
I'm telling you, he's on time. Now, for those of you who have just joined the chat and just joined the broadcast, please take the time to go back as soon as the broadcast ends and go listen to the entirety of the show. We played a lot of powerful clips. We read some powerful articles that prove to you what we're saying about the apocalypse and what's going on. You don't want to miss that if you come in on the tail end. We're going to see you guys tomorrow, and remember that we love you, but God, he will always love you best. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous, because you're going to need to be righteous in these brutal times that are coming up. On that note, we leave you all. But guess what? Mama, your baby boy loves you with all his heart.